Hi, I'm Michael, and today I'm going to be starting off the project with talking about checks and balances. So, checks and balances are the specific checks that each of the three branches of government have on each other. So, the executive branch can check the legislative branch by vetoing bills, appointing secretaries, and passing their own executive orders. And they check the judicial branch by appointing justices, pardoning people, and postponing sentences of federal offenders. The legislative branch can check the executive branch by approving or rejecting cabinet members, um, and they can override vetoes. They can refuse to fund presidential programs, and they can impeach and remove the president. And the check they have on the judicial branch is they can pass amendments to override rulings, impeach or remove judges, establish lower courts, and reject appointees to the Supreme Court. And finally, the judicial branch can check the executive and legislative branch by declaring laws or executive actions unconstitutional. So checks and balances are meant to separate powers and prevent a tyrannical government from forming. And it's important to learn about our government's three branches and checks and balances because knowing them can give us a better understanding of how our government works and can help us form our own opinions on how we view the fairness and the distribution of power in the government. Because ultimately, it's up to us, our vote, that can change our system if we see fit. A real world example of this is when the Senate was originally elected by the state legislators, but the people thought that was not a good representation of the will of the people, so they voted for change, and now senators are elected directly by the people. So next up, I'm going to be talking about political parties, and in the United States, we have a two-party system in which it consists of Democrats and Republicans. So each political party group has its own philosophy on how our government and economic system should be run, and Democrats leaning towards heavily regulated capitalism and socialism, and which means more government involvement, while Republicans lean towards less regulated free market capitalism, which includes less government involvement. Certain social issues can also be party specific, like pro choice for Democrats and pro life for Republicans. Democrats are usually more progressive and advocate for change, while Republicans are considered more traditional and skeptical of change. Democrats typically want more taxes, especially on the very wealthy, paired with more government programs, while Republicans typically want a smaller government and less taxes. Democrats are pro gun control, while Republicans are pro gun, and Democrats are for universal health care, while Republicans are for strictly privatized health care. And this list of differing opinions goes on, but the basic rule of thumb for inferring whether a policy or belief is Democrat or Republican, just ask yourself, is this expanding the power of government or lessening the power of government? Is this a newer, more progressive idea or one that holds on to traditional values? If it expands the power of government or is a newer, more progressive idea, it's most likely Democrat. And if it's lessening the power of government or it's an idea that holds on to traditional values, then it's most likely Republican. It's important to learn about and be knowledgeable about the two-party system because when it comes time to vote, you should know what each party stands for and more importantly, what you stand for. This is most important in states like California, where only registered Democrats can vote in the Democratic primaries and only registered Republicans can vote in the Republican primaries. Accurately affiliating yourself with the political party and being aware of what that party stands for is important when voting for elected officials because it determines what kind of laws they will pass and how they will represent the will of the people. Lastly, I'm going to be talking about the Electoral College, which is the way that the president gets elected. So even though we are a democracy, the president actually doesn't get elected directly by the people. The people elect state legislators, which make up Congress, and their votes are the ones that end up counting towards the presidential election. The Electoral College has a winner-take-all system, which means that whatever candidate gets the majority of votes in a state gets all the votes of that state. There are two examples to this, which are the states of Maine and Nebraska, in which each vote gets counted individually instead of the majority claiming all. The Electoral College was created instead of a popular vote for two main reasons. One, to give small states a voice in the election, and two, because the Founding Fathers were scared of uneducated voters. The Electoral College has a very important role in the United States since it's given the power to elect our president. Knowing about the Electoral College and understanding how it works can help you make careful decisions when it comes to electing representatives, and it can also help you understand why it is so heavily criticized. Since recently, in the last election, the electoral outcome was not the same as the popular vote. Knowing this could help cause for reform or the complete abolition of the Electoral College. So that's the end of my video. Thank you for listening.